You said we're gonna do something to your brain.
Ahoy hoy! Welcome to Dead Air 5. This time we're talking about Snakes in the House, Avatar 2, Harry and Meghan, making $500,000 a year and still being poor. Wah. So, hi, Christina, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I am good.
Yeah, good. On this nice stormy afternoon.
Yep. So what do you want to talk about first?
So, what I've got in order. Number one, snake.
Snake.
Snake. Yeah.
Okay.
Fun story. Do you want to tell it or?
Sure, I'll start. Was it Sunday?
I think so, yep.
I walked into this studio here where you have to walk through it to get to the bathroom that works. And Christina walked in and then came out and said, George, I need your help. In a very serious Christina way. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And over there,
Yeah, right next to me.
right next to you, we had a line of mouse traps.
Mm-hmm. We'd seen
Sticky
some mice.
traps.
There's a small closet here where we keep like equipment and stuff. And
Damien's room.
Damien's room, that's right. And we'd seen a mouse go in there recently, so I found some sticky traps that we saw laying around, laid them out in a line in front of the door to try and catch one going in or out.
So why had these sticky traps caught a 4-foot-long cottonmouth snake, which is apparently venomous?
Yeah, it looked like a cottonmouth.
Yeah.
I looked at pictures afterward, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
So that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, yeah. You had just finished editing the Flash video, so I was getting ready to watch it. It was rendering. It was like 5 minutes out from completing. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna use the bathroom.
But no, the next 3 hours we were dealing with that.
Came back 3 seconds later. Yeah. George, I need your help.
Yeah.
There's a large snake in the studio.
Yeah.
You're like, what? In the studio, curled up in the corner. You're like, what do we do? We're gonna call my mom and stepdad.
Yeah.
They'll know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, sure enough, stepdad knew what to do.
Yeah, kill it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what I already thought we'd have to do.
Yeah.
He was like,
Sing it a lullaby.
like you can try to, you could try to get it scooped up and get it outside or something, but it could be venomous. And where we live, definitely by the time an ambulance got here, we'd be dead. So we had to...
America.
Yeah. Rural America, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, George had to take care of it, which was...
Took it out for dinner and gave it a great time.
A fucking ordeal, yeah. So, yeah, that was fascinating. And then that took quite a bit of, like, kind of coming back and forth to see if it had, in fact, been taken care of completely. And
without going into details, oh man, it took some fucking killing.
Yeah.
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 Could have done that cleaner.
Yeah, it was alarming. So, yeah, ever since then, every time I come through the studio, I'm looking at the floor. And yeah, pretty much what we thought it was. There's been like a recurring mouse problem around here for a while because we live next to the woods. There's field mice everywhere.
In a dilapidated property that we're renting on the cheap.
Yes, that's why we're getting it so cheap.
That's a whole thing.
It's a whole other story, really.
No, I mean that's a whole like side economy. It's not a side economy. You know what I mean? That's like a whole side part of the rental sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So there were tons of mouse holes when we first moved in. Yeah, which we got it for super cheap.
Yeah.
No deposit.
The people who previously owned it put a lot of holes into the walls to run cables through, and
that's what it looks like. Yeah.
I mean, like, and didn't seal them or didn't care.
Yeah, like holes like this big.
Yeah. That was also the width of the snake, like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Its central part.
Yeah, it was pretty big in the middle. Yeah, it may have gotten a mouse. Maybe that's
what was going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and also, so yeah, we had to then pull everything out of the studio closet. And sure enough, there was a hole in the back corner that we'd filled when we first moved in with like expanding foam, and they just dug another hole right next to it. So, a huge pile of mouse shit, and yep, I can tell exactly what happened. Snake followed them on in, curled up in here.
Stuck.
Who knows how long it was coming into the house without us noticing. I mean, it could have not been very long, but yeah. It was alarming.
It was so big.
It was so big, yeah.
Because
And,
when you said snake, I thought, oh, it'll be like that big or something. But
yeah, well, that's why I said I can't remember if it was
there's a huge snake.
There's a huge snake in the studio. You know, it's not like huge, but it seemed pretty big for just hanging out in your house.
Snake don't come into house unless you bring snake into house.
Yeah.
My ass.
Yeah, that's what my stepdad said, like ages ago, where my mom's like, you know, make sure you get all that stuff sealed up because you don't want to have like a snake in the house. And he's like, snake don't come in the house unless you bring snake in the house.
Snake in the house.
So
there you go. There's the snake story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A snake did get in the house, and I mean, I'm glad it was us that found it, not the dog, because he would definitely try to play with it.
Yeah.
He's kind of.
I had to kill a small snake in Mexico, which I suspect was poison because it was black and red. Although I know that doesn't always mean it, but it was like that big. But the only reason I knew it existed is because my cat was like tossing it into the air.
Throwing it around the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a little snake, yeah, I mean, you know. I mean, the reality is if I could be sure that it wasn't venomous, like, you know, and we could get it off the sticky trap, I would have just picked it up and taken it outside.
How are you going to get it off the sticky trap?
That's part of the question and why I think that we had to make the decision we did, because not knowing, first of all, for sure whether or not it's venomous, and then the fact that it's stuck on these glue traps, that's going to require a lot of getting in there with something. I don't even know.
Acetone.
Yeah, I guess. I don't have any around the house, so.
You don't have any acetone?
I know.
I told you last time you went to Walmart, don't forget the acetone.
I don't paint my nails.
Yeah. Don't forget the bromide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we cleared it all out, filled the hole back up,
Mm-hmm.
because we had some spray foam stuff, and George just like emptied the can in like a huge line around the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, part of the regular schedule now will be going around the house, pulling furniture out and stuff, checking the walls, because.
Still the nicest place I've lived in America.
Yeah, this is, I mean, yeah, pretty nice to me. It's one of the biggest places I've lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else about that? Yeah, I definitely. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Anybody knows stuff about mice? What would cause mice to climb up on our counters and eat bars of soap? Does anybody have an answer for that? Is that a good sign or a bad sign? I don't know.
No, you got mice eating bars of soap. That's good luck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, I can tell that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Little teeny teeth marks.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
that's the snake story. We'll be
Yes.
buying more mousetraps soon.
yeah, and we heard a bear. But enough.
Yeah, like a day later. Yeah, we heard a bear in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty far though.
Yeah. He was pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if because one of our neighbors has been playing music like throughout the night.
Yeah.
Like pretty regularly, like outside, and I wonder if that's to spook bears. Because I've heard lots of stories
Yeah, it
about
doesn't
they're
like
out right
contemporary
now.
jazz.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like country music. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet bear,
Which would scare me away.
come to my window.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. Snake.
Yeah, let's do an actual topic.
All right.
Now rather than the snake thing.
Okay. Avatar 2.
Let's talk more about the snake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a load to say about
Avatar
it.
2, the worst adaptation of Abe's Odyssey. Avatar 2, go on then. What happens in Avatar 2? What's that 3-hour film about?
Yeah, okay. The guy that stayed with the... Chumley, who stayed with the stand-in for Native Americans.
The blue people.
The blue people.
Oppressed people everywhere.
Yeah, stayed and lived with them, and I should clarify, I didn't see the first one. I didn't really feel like it was necessary, and I wasn't going to sit through it.
I did see the first one.
You did. What did you think of the first one?
I remember it was kind of better than this because whilst the story was not original, it wasn't a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this very much felt like a sequel in the middle of a trilogy.
Yeah.
It ended that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that works too well after you've had like such a long gap of, I mean, it's more than 10 years.
yeah.
More than 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the story of the first one is so sort of painting by numbers, you know, it's really like a framework for the special effects, which were groundbreaking and lovely to look at the time and now. And they're good. They're good in this mostly, but not entirely.
Yeah.
Like the movement of the Na'vi is very weird.
Yeah.
At times.
Because that was one of the things I saw.
Textures are great.
People praised it for is like, the CG is amazing. It's great. When the Na'vi are standing still, not moving, and not talking, it looks pretty good. Like some good textures. But the motion is like, I don't know, like it was weird to watch to me because it felt like there were frames missing. Like it's so much jerkier and it's more noticeable when they're next to like, a little boy in a loincloth, for example, running around.
I felt like it was almost like, I don't know if I agree with frames missing. I think it was, I can fly. It was almost like, I know they filmed it on 24 frames a second, but the Na'vi they'd filmed on like 30 or something. I'm not saying that is what they did, but it almost felt like, when you watch like an old-timey film where everyone's moving a bit too quick because they didn't have a standard frame rate, like they would, or maybe it was 14 frames a second, I can't remember. But anyway, it kind of felt a bit like that, like just the Na'vi moving like ever so slightly too quickly, and
the like bird things that they fly on
therefore not having any weight.
Weird. Yeah, that's something that I kept saying. Is like it feels like nobody has any weight in this. They're like 10 feet tall or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know, moving around like
nothing they touch ever
like
has any give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
They're moving around like grasshoppers. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if I'm being fair to it. I mean, because as I was saying to you when we were watching it, you're like, so what do you think?
Was I? Does it sound
yeah. I was like, I don't think that I'm the target audience for this.
Who's the target audience?
Well, I would say children. It's animated. It's a very simple thing, that like 20 minutes it felt like of them just like swimming around in the coral reef felt like something for children.
You felt it was too boring for children.
But it was too boring for children, I felt like. It was, I found it pretty dull.
I think that the way that children consume films, not just now, but perhaps more so, is like they're going to be doing something. They're going to be like doing something. They're going to be like on their iPad while this is on.
Yeah, but apparently loads of people took their children to this 3-hour movie in a cinema, which I'm sure was a joy for everyone involved.
Yeah. I
can't be with children in a cinema for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't like it. I thought it was, I agree, I'm not the audience, and I certainly respect, the visual effects work that went into it, everything.
Yeah, a lot of people worked hard.
Yeah. And, I just thought the story was just rubbish.
Yeah.
And didn't really logically make sense anyway.
Yeah.
And there were kind of mentions as well of they want to make Pandora a new planet for humans that humans can occupy, but then that never really came up again, like consequentially.
Yeah, and there's nowhere unobtainium. It's like whale juice that they're looking for now, but then that kind of doesn't come back. It feels like
precious hamburgers.
Hamburgers, yeah, that's what they were after.
Yeah, I guess originally as well, Avatar came, less than a decade after the invasion of Iraq. Which I think that by the time it came out, what was it, like 2009, 10, something like that, people were pretty against Iraq, the occupation of Iraq.
People talking about colonialism. And
people
stuff
talking
like
about
that,
plundering the country and stuff. And that's definitely what Avatar 1 was about. And obviously now, America isn't in Iraq or Afghanistan. And
I'm saying like the cultural, like
I'm saying it's not that story isn't as relevant now.
Yeah, I get you.
It's still relevant, still about pollution and giant bulldozers cutting down vast swathes of this wonderful, fantastic ecosystem. Did it?
Yeah, like modern.
I wanted to see more of that. Like I wanted to see orcs chucking trees into. Into wood chippers. Yeah. To make woodbine cigarettes out of. That's how they make them. Yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of people enjoyed it. Good for them. That's cool.
Yeah.
I found it boring, and I'm not impressed by the CG.
No, and
Yeah.
again, I don't think the logical problems of it don't make sense. But okay, okay, we want to live on Pandora now, all right. But before they didn't, like, why even breach the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Like if you can travel faster than the speed of light to get here, then surely you can like strip mine this planet without putting people down there.
Yeah.
Like robots first of all, but also just
Yeah.
like a massive space elevator that's just digging,
Yeah.
just skewer it,
I mean, when we first started
and
watching
it
it, I
pops
was
open like a molten baked Alaska.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like the
I'm
core of
familiar.
it.
Yeah.
No, but like if you were like, yeah, we want unobtainium, and those dudes there with bows and arrows for some reason pose a threat to us, like, okay, then neutron bomb it.
Yeah. There are loads of questions for me. I don't know how much of any of that was explained in the first one. Like, is an entire planet like covered in Navi? Like, can you not just land somewhere else and mine the unobtainium?
It's only when the Navi are.
Yeah, right. Well, that was a question for me, and pretty early on, I was like, I just got to stop thinking that way because there's, nothing makes logical sense. This guy combined with his avatar in the first one and became a Navi and was able to reproduce with another woman. Is that? I don't understand.
Yes, they made them to be exact replicas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like organic robots.
Well, if you have that technology, why are you going to other planets to get minerals?
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense. So.
Yeah, our previous team, when they were humans, died, so we'll bring them back as Navi at great cost. They
Yeah.
make clear in the first one.
And we'll make them look like Navi so that they can blend in, but then we'll give them all of their like military equipment and stuff, so they're obviously not Navi. And then their grand plan is to like just run around like attacking Navi and blowing them up.
Yeah.
I thought they were supposed to be hiding.
Yeah. And they send them in like Vietnam era special forces. Like they're almost even dressed like that, like going through the jungle and stuff. And it's like, you know what we did learn from Vietnam? Defoliant. Right? Lots and lots of motherfucking defoliant. That's all you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're here for the unobtainium. What do I care about trees?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, why do we need that?
But yeah, I mean, it's a children's film. I tried to just put that out of my mind and focus on the actual story.
Can't
which
you
I
just
found
enjoy
boring.
anything? Can't you just turn your brain off?
I wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Have you tried drugs?
Yeah, that's what Kenny versus Benny is for.
No, I like to rewatch those things and be like, how did they do that?
Yeah, that is a fun part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's actually vomiting there. That's real.
You can tell.
Yeah,
It's real.
the meat sweats and everything.
Yes,
Anyway.
that's real. Anyway.
Anything else about Avatar? But one thing you can say about James Cameron is he knows how to design a submarine.
You can say that about him, yeah.
Yeah.
Or he can hire people who know how to do it.
He respects the
And
process enough to do
listens
that.
them.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He seems like a wonderful man. Oh,
seems
the
nice.
colours.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one thing that I was wondering about is like, okay, so it's all jungle people, whatever, the Na'vi in the first one, and then we meet water Na'vi.
Mm-hmm.
Like James Cameron suddenly remembered that he loves the ocean, so this one's gonna be in the ocean.
Yeah.
And the next one will be, mountain Na'vi or something.
Volcano water Navi, and they're red. Those ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've got like white eyes because they live so deep they can't see too good.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Like I said, I don't think I'm the audience for this. So.
What other Navi could there be? You've got like jungle Navi.
Space Na'vi, Moon Na'vi. They're in spacesuits.
No, they don't have spacesuits. It'll be something.
Spacesuits made out of
Natural.
twigs.
No, it's like they can breathe through their mouth, so they go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Snow Na'vi.
Yeah, they could be white.
They're just elves
White
now.
ones. Yeah.
Wood elves, snow elves. I guess we'll need dark elves.
Oh, there's damn Bosman Navi. You've stolen all the
Bosmer
crops.
Na'vi.
Yeah.
They're thieves.
They're things, those little wooden things. Yeah, you've got grapes in your hair. All right. What's next?
Okay, we also watched Harry and Meghan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
Well, I'm sure.
We watched Harry and Meghan for the third time.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I mean, I find
Christina.
it.
She loves the royal family.
I find it fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
In a sort of like on a psychological level, I guess.
A psychological level.
Like their psychology is fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, how do you know? It might just be. I've heard the Pope doesn't believe in God and stuff. He's like, yeah, we do good. We try to do good.
Yeah.
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 Reading his Guns and Bullets.
Guns and bullets. Yeah.
Yeah.
+10.
So what do you mean the psychology? Like how they convince themselves that it's right to be a king?
I mean, in particular, Harry and Meghan.
Their psychology.
The psychology of like it's not fair. The media harasses us and is interested in us. So we're gonna go on Oprah and make a Netflix series about how we met in our personal lives and our amazing romance and then spend most of that bitching about how they don't like the exposure of the media.
Yeah.
I just find that interesting. What they don't like is negative attention.
Yeah.
If it was all attention of like, you guys are amazing and everyone loves you, perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason that we ended up watching it again was because their Spotify deal.
Yes, that's right.
Finished, and one of the executives of Spotify, who, if I remember rightly, he was like an independent producer who had his own podcast, but also had 30 other podcasts that he wasn't necessarily on, but was producing.
Mm-hmm.
Spotify bought out his company doing that. He ended up as an executive on Spotify. I don't think he's the executive who did the deal with them. I think they came before he did. But he described them as fucking grifters on his podcast, now that their deal is over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did he say about it? Like, why?
Because they produced like one podcast, and they never produced anything again, and their ideas were things like, we want to interview Vladimir Putin, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton about their childhood trauma on our podcast. Like, Vladimir Putin is going to be talking about that.
I'm sure they'll all be interested in that. Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so dumb ideas.
Life was difficult on the farm. Oh, that wasn't very good.
What was?
That Vladimir Putin impression.
Oh. Yeah.
Life difficult on farm, but then I found out I can feast on blood.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And how much do they get paid for this?
Oh, I think I can't remember if it was Netflix or Spotify that was a $50 million deal. Mm-hmm. But Netflix have also said to them, you better produce more content than just Harry and Meghan. Mm-hmm. Which was the most viewed documentary on Netflix, but...
Yeah. I mean, they have loads of fans, definitely.
They have fans still?
Oh, they do, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What do people fan them for? I love your acting, Meghan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Just for being famous.
I think that's probably it, really, yeah. Being famous, and, I mean, there definitely are plenty of Americans who are really interested in your royal family in general, which I don't really understand, but...
Yeah.
They do.
My royal family.
Yours.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. President of YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was fascinating, though, just the amount of...
Are they grifters?
I mean, I don't know. But...
I think they're very, very self-involved, whatever they are.
Yeah, I would say that's the case. Very, very self-involved, yeah.
Yeah. You said you had more sympathy with them at the beginning of them saying we don't want to be in the royal family anymore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I was telling you, I think that my feeling just from watching them is like, I think Harry kind of means it. Like he, kind of does want to.
He will never not be famous. So.
Yes, yeah, he's, he doesn't really have a choice.
No,
so
he was born into it.
I do feel a little bit of sympathy there.
Yeah.
And, he's obviously I would say a bit of a dullard, so...
Would you say that?
Yeah, so,
well,
I have a little more sympathy for him.
I think you would disagree with Army, who chose him to be an officer, despite his grades, which probably means he did really well on his entrance exam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
To be an officer in Army.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it had nothing to do with who he is or anything.
Did you know, a little known story about that is when he was going to join the Household Cavalry, right? However, there is like a tradition, at least in the British Army, going back like at least 200 years, that you have like. Have you ever heard the thing of like you have two sons, and your first son, the favourite son, becomes a lawyer, and your second son becomes a priest, sort of thing? Like in ye olde times, it would be like Dickensian times, sort of that thing. Mm-hmm. Well, in the army, it would be like, your favourite son. You're a crusty old colonel in the army. Your favourite son becomes like, maybe he starts as an officer in the infantry, but he'll definitely become a staff officer. Mm-hmm. Your idiot son becomes a cavalry officer. Mm-hmm. Don't know why.
Right. Okay.
But that's always been the tradition. Like cavalry officers are the fucking stupidest. Mm-hmm. Until you get to like SAS officer, who apparently they're unbelievably dumb. Never mind.
Right. Okay.
Never mind.
All right.
But anyway, they decided apparently not to put Harry into cavalry, to not invite that. Mm-hmm. Criticism, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Or comparison. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, what else do I find?
Why do you think he's a dullard?
I don't know. It's nothing.
It just comes across like he's
I'm not basing on anything rational. It's just, my sense. Yeah. Take that as you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the fact that Meghan Markle grew up poor? Disadvantaged.
Yeah, what about that? Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
She could only afford $60,000 a year for her. Was it private high school?
Yeah, it was a private high school.
Private high school?
Celebrities send their children.
So her dad...
Her dad was a lighting director on Married with Children.
Who was nominated for an Emmy.
It was something like that,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, she grew up poor and disadvantaged then.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's fine to say that you're privileged,
It's better to say you're privileged.
It's better, it's to recognize it and be like, I've been privileged and other people aren't, and I want to do something about that. Cool. Respect.
Yeah.
Instead of, no, I had a really hard time growing up.
When
did you?
Prince William got married to Kate Middleton, there was loads of stuff about, like, does she have the right pedigree? Mm-hmm. Because she was only middle class. Mm-hmm. Upper middle class, I suppose.
Yeah, right.
But like her dad owned like a racehorse.
Yeah, right.
And was like at least a multi-millionaire. Like at least like he wasn't like super rich.
Yeah, I get you.
But
God. Yeah. Anything else to say about Harry and Meghan?
Harry and Meghan.
Yeah. What do you think should happen with like the royal family? I mean, do you think it should be abolished or?
Why do Americans keep asking me this?
Sorry, I forgot you did just talk about
what
that.
What do I think should happen to them?
Yeah, well, I mean,
should it be abolished? Yeah, I think it should be abolished. I think it should, ideally it should be sort of like, thanks very much for your service. You've served your purpose. Go and piss off to like a nice country house in, the Dordogne or somewhere that isn't necessarily Britain. We'll give you half of Carlisle. I know, I don't want them to like be dethroned and defrocked and thrown into the streets because they'd never go for that. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to like really like punch him. Mm-hmm. But you know what I'm saying? I think that I think they should be abolished. I think it's like peculiar and odd and like really old fashioned and embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know if most Britons feel that or not, but definitely like. You guys think that's embarrassing. Yeah, everyone I've ever talked to in Europe who doesn't have a king or queen thinks it's embarrassing. Yeah. And then even people like, the Dutch have a queen. Mm. And I think their queen married a hairdresser. And you can see her like knocking around in coffee shops and stuff. Like, and it's just a relic. And they're a relic. It's just they don't have direct power, but they definitely, have power. They're going on all these... tours of Caribbean islands. That's, directly representing the British government. They're part of it, and it's just...
Yeah, right.
Just yuck.
Yeah, I get you.
But I don't think there should be, like, a civil war or anything about it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And to be fair, I mean, Americans, we have our
You have your
stuff that
dynasties.
we have our dynasties that we worship as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just Americans like to like cling to this idea of meritocracy in our dynasties, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
Sophia Coppola.
Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, she doesn't own, like, Prince Charles has access to, like, £2 billion worth of land. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So, yes, I'm against it. What do I think, you know, is the path forward for that? Like, I don't think there is one. I think, I think Britain will have a monarchy until Britain exists no more for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are a lot
Until
of
the
people that
ravens
love
leave the
them.
tower.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Loads of stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, we're watching Harry and Meghan and the bit where it goes back to Princess Diana having Harry, birthing Harry, and you've got the guy outside of 10 Downing Street going, "We are proud to announce," and he's dressed in like 16th century garb.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're stood outside of the Prime Minister's house there, so I kind of think it would be better if there was a bit of separation of monarchy and state.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, anyway.
if you were a PR person, what would you say to Harry and Meghan?
Go away and shut up for a while. And then you might be able to come back into the spotlight, which I know is what you really want.
That'll be $150,000, please.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know.
It depends what you want. I think you'd have to ask them, right?
Yeah, I mean, what do you really want? You know, that's kind of the question. If the goal is, like, we just want to live our lives and not be harassed, not have our children be harassed, you know, which totally understandable.
Go and live in Monaco.
Yeah, you could. There are places in the world where even Harry could go and kind of just have a quiet life.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna have a quiet life living in Montecito in like a $30 million mansion.
Yeah.
You know, like in the heart of, you know,
That was possibly illegally
Hollywood,
built.
paparazzi. Yeah, was it?
Never mind.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else to say. Just if that's what you want, then do it. You know, don't write a book about it.
Yeah, and all this shit about, like, wanting to help people, like, okay, then give your money away. Keep $1 million even. Go on then. But you won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Yeah, that brings us to another topic.
French Revolution. Have you seen that? There are riots in France right now.
Yeah.
Big riots.
I did see that, but I didn't really read about it. What's going on?
A teenager, I think he was 17, was shot by the police during a traffic stop. And now there are, I think he was Algerian, Moroccan, French. Well, he might have been Algerian French or Moroccan French, I don't know. But there is a huge number of Algerian and Moroccan either dual passport holders or just French people with that heritage who often feel like they are second-class citizens. Kind of La Haine goes into that a little bit. You know, and that's been historic, you know, since the end of French colonialism, you know, 50s, 60s. And, they're rioting. And, there have been some strong words from the French police at calling them vermin and stuff like that. There are possibly racial undertones to it all. Doesn't feel dissimilar to things that happen in America occasionally. You know, BLM protests and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
There you go. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of racism in France. There's a lot of racism in England. Yeah. Why do you think it doesn't have racism? St. Lucia didn't have much racism while I was there.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Hey, white boy."
Yeah.
That's racist. Yeah. Do you want to buy some weed, a fish, something I've carved out of wood, or just have a chat with me? One of those things. I don't mind that.
Yeah, you said St. Lucia is one of your favorite places you've traveled to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are some least favorite places?
What that I've ever gone to.
Yeah.
Probably everywhere in England I've ever been. I suppose they were pretty nasty, full of fucking English.
Uh-huh.
London was the worst place I've ever lived.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where else have you been to? You enjoyed India. Did you not?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No. It was, yeah, that was horrible.
Guyana?
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that more. I mean, India was beautiful, and I met some very, very kind people there, and had some very interesting chats with people and stuff. But it was like I have to get a train at like 5 a.m. and I'd be like stepping over the people like sleeping on the floor of the train station, and like they had jobs. They weren't like, you know, they were homeless, but they had a function in society. Like the poverty was immense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
The poverty was absolutely immense and endless. And yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but I had some great experiences there. But yeah, it was stressful because of that. It was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I went when I was 19, so I guess it was like a bit of an eye opener. Yeah.
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 I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Guyana I like too. Yeah, that was very interesting, that place. But what's the next on the list then? Are we done with Harry and Meghan?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say, do you?
No.
Fuck them.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next?
My new book, Wah!
Yeah.
That's, yeah. Yeah, kind of, somewhat leading off that, is going to talk about a sort of viral, story that was going around in the last week about, it originated on, it's like Financial Samurai, article talking about a couple who makes $500,000 per year and how they're living paycheck to paycheck, basically, and, you know, poor them, which was kind of fascinating. Got the, you know, what you'd expect the reaction to be on social media.
Anger.
Yeah, anger.
Yes.
Definitely. So it was picked up by all kinds of news outlets.
And it was a real
trending on social
couple.
media. Yep, real couple, this guy says, from Brooklyn, New York, two lawyers.
Two lawyers living in Brooklyn, New York, making $500,000 between them, with a family of two children.
Two children.
Living in an apartment, I assume.
4-bedroom house.
4-bedroom house.
Worth like $1.5 million or something like that, yeah.
And they make $500,000 a year, and they put $40,000 of that into their 401k every year. But they're broke.
Yeah, I think that's what people really took issue with, and why this kind of trended for a bit is like they were treating it like, you know, like, oh, we make this good amount of money, but we don't have any savings. Still, you know, we're paycheck to paycheck. But yeah, combined they put in like $36,000 per year into their 401ks.
And someone readjusted it for like a financial advisor, like showed them how to save money.
Yeah,
right?
That was kind of the point of the article, this financial advisor.
And they went from spending $18,000 a year on vacations to 15.
Yeah, 3 vacations a year. Yeah. Yeah, and some of the advice was like having your clothing budget only be $500 per month instead of $1,500 or whatever it was, and no designer stuff. I haven't bought $500 worth of clothes in the past 10 years, you know. So yeah, I think people were justifiably a bit outraged at the way that it was put, and yeah, what else was there? Like $60,000 per year for their children's who are not in school yet, for their preschool, daycare, and lessons like violin and tennis.
$60,000 a year for extracurricular.
For their preschool, babysitting, and extracurricular stuff, yeah, is about what the median American household makes in a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of that story about that comedian I briefly worked with. Should I tell that?
Yeah, you can tell it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So back in my, I suppose, early 20s. Oh, my God, what happened? I worked on this stupid project with these two, well, one rich person, two posh people. who wanted to set up a website and have all this stuff about kind of like documentary stuff and things like that about kind of like about real topics, about why the world is broken in the way it is and all of that, but they didn't really have a clue and their intentions weren't really that pure.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I know,
die
it's
with a
fly
bug.
the whole time.
But anyway, part of it was they wanted to do kind of like 5-minute shorts with a fairly well-known British comedian who had been on TV a few times. Like he'd been on like panel shows, never as a regular, but like a jobbing comedian, and he was doing pretty well. He made $3,000 a night at, I can't remember what it was called. There's a famous comedy club like just off Leicester Square, I think. He's making like $3,000 a night every time he performed there, and everything. And I remember him talking about being working class, and he got like kind of really pissy and said like, "Don't you say you're working class? You're middle class." Like I wasn't going to say I was working class.
And he was basing this on what?
That I was wearing a suit jacket, a sport jacket, nice little grey number, I think, and I have a booming neutral voice.
A neutral accent. Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, I think you can tell I'm a bit northern. But, he was basing that off that, I guess. But, I mean, I guess that's the class issue of, like, I don't know, I think I am middle class. In terms of British class. But anyway, he said that kind of, like, defensively, like, I'm working class, you're not working class. And, like, I think, like, later that day, definitely the same week, he talked to me and said that he spent £20,000 a year on his 2 kids doing extracurricular activities, i.e. like karate class, dance class, stuff like that. And I was making £300 a week and paying £600 a month to live in a room the size of this in London. It's like definitely, like in terms of like perceived class, I'm middle class, but I was definitely making a fucking working class income.
Yeah, I get you.
And that's weird to you, right? Because you base class on income.
Yeah, I mean...
You.
You mean Americans?
No, I mean you, Christina.
Yeah, I'd say overall
Christina R.
Americans focus on income, but it probably depends on where you get up the ladder as well. Like, there definitely is like old money in the US, and they don't see it that way.
Yeah.
As like just making a lot of money makes you high class, I think they probably see it more like...
They're almost like aristocrats. But in Britain, being an aristocrat doesn't mean you're wealthy. Like, you could be an aristocrat and be, like, destitute. You'd still be upper class. And you could be a lottery winner, who works at the gas station. You could have millions of dollars and people would still say you're working class because of your upbringing.
Yeah, I get you.
I've heard people say that it used to be defined by your education, but I think that's kind of blurred a bit. And it is a bit to do with money, but it's also to do with upbringing where, like in Britain, definitely like people who fancy themselves middle class, they'll have a different diet, often a different way of speaking, a different accent. That's often a good indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have that too. It just depends. It depends on what your measure is. Like education is seen as like a marker, for like class, but it's just not, like a guarantee or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask here, whether they see it as being more about money or, upbringing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I think it depends.
Yeah.
But we probably do focus a bit more on the money thing.
So do you have like the concept of like working class jobs and like is an office job a middle class job?
I guess it depends. I mean, me growing up, I definitely felt that, my child brain thought that like working in an office meant that you were middle class at least.
Yeah.
Just because like, everybody I knew like worked in like construction, food service, retail, you know. I mean, so my grandparents worked in a factory for years and years.
Yeah.
So, you know, perspective shifts as you move up. And, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of it depends on perspective. And that's part of what I find interesting about this whole thing about the $500,000 budget, is, you know, I think the guy who wrote the article was kind of trying to make this point just in the most fucking obnoxious way possible. You know, like, you know, like, he basically was alluding to, like, the hedonic treadmill, this idea that the more money and status that you have, the less it feels like. So you kind of want more. You can, you know, a lot of people are susceptible to this.
Yeah.
You know, you might think at one point in your life, if I made $100,000 a year, like, I'd feel rich. And then maybe if you do make $100,000 a year, you know, you're, for various reasons, you've gotten used to spending more.
I got 40% tax on that.
You know, the people that you spend your time with, you know, your expectations shift, and you start to feel not so rich.
You've gotten used to buying canned meat with the label still on it.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Living the high life.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I think that's an easy thing for people to get into. Like, I knew. I had a friend who was an accountant, and he had a friend who was also an accountant, but just became an accountant to save up to buy his own music shop. That was his dream.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story. Yeah.
Yeah, and he saved up for it and got to the point where he could buy it, and also had enough money to run it without like making a single sale in a year. You know, if things didn't go too well, he could adapt or whatever. And he never bought it because he got a bigger house and he got a bigger mortgage,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Yeah, your perspective shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, and he could have afforded, and he could, you know, he still could afford it, I suppose, but
Yeah, I get you.
yeah, make $1 million so you can afford to catch fish.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you want to tell that? Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just you could just catch fish, or you could, you know, make $1 million to, you know, hire someone to run your company for you, so you have the time to catch fish. But you know, you'll also be able to drive there in a brand new Land Rover.
Yeah, like just perspective shifting, and
yeah,
I get you.
Well, one thing before I forget, when I went to India, you know, you stand out as a white person. Lots of people sort of want to talk to you, and you know, I'll give you a tour, and you know, you meet lots of different people on your unofficial tour. And one of the people I met was, well, firstly, I met a guy who was super into wrestling. I went to his house. It was like probably like 50 square feet, and all he had was a bed and a TV, and it was just WWE playing. And he said, "I cannot believe it. You're the first white person I've ever seen in real life." And he was like, "Wow."
Really?
Yeah, that was really funny. He was really funny. He was like asking me about wrestling, like just constantly. Like, that guy's my favorite. Yeah, Tin Man, is it? Yeah. Yeah, but I met another guy like outside his house who was, he was on the side of the street, and he'd made a wall out of like loose bricks and like loose bits of mortar, like on the street. So it was like the front of his place was on the actual road, and then where he slept was like on the pavement, like a bit raised. Like, oh, nice, double tier, right? And the wall was probably like 2 feet high, and then over that he had a tarp, like a big blue tarp, like, and he obviously lived there permanently, and his job was selling tea. And I bought like tea off him for 5 rupees, and I was talking to him through my illustrious translator Mau or whoever, and I said to him, "So this is like your shop?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "So do you consider yourself middle class?" And he was like, "Yep, definitely." And the guy like lived in a gutter. But you know, I mean, he was trying, he was working and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he was wrong. Just like that is a very different middle class to.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. I mean,
I bought 2 teas from him. Indian tea. Oh, that was good. Enjoyed that. Like a little shot of like straight up sugar.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
no, you're fine.
Yeah.
Just thinking like, perspective.
Well, are
you know,
they $500,000 a year? Is that middle class? Is that upper class? Yeah.
if you make over 400,000, you're in the top 1%.
But is that upper class?
I would say that's upper class. Yes.
But it's definitely not elite.
No, I guess it depends.
Elite, you've got to be making 10 million over
Yeah,
a year.
I can't recall.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
they're not, they're making 500 grand a year, but they're not like, they don't have the ear of the mayor.
yeah.
Do they? Or anything
Yeah,
like
I
that?
get what
There's
you're
loads of them.
saying. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's also worth saying that I think that it's just something I noticed that there's a tendency for in America people to want to say that they're middle class, like regardless, you know, like nobody
Wants to say
wants to say I'm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends, but I just think that there's definitely like a tendency for people to assume that they're middle class, even if they're much higher or much lower, for like cultural reasons.
It's like 90% of everyone's middle class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Americans kind of do see it that way a bit.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily help anything when, I don't know, just everybody, thinks that they're normal. Yeah, I mean, what else was in that budget? Because there was some really funny stuff. Here, I'll just pull it up real quick in case there's anything I missed that's hilarious. But go ahead, yeah.
How much are those people to blame? I mean, obviously they're not, they're both lawyers. It's not like they're making money from, from lithium mining or something. But, hey, I know they're not to blame for, someone in Nebraska who the only choice they had was, live in this shit town and work in this shit factory or join the army and, it turns out they pay shit too. I know it's not their fault, but, kind of like I was saying to Andy, the electorate has to be responsible a bit. Like, they're not fucking standing up for the working man, are they?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe they're both, like, human rights lawyers, but still, like, that is just an unbelievable amount of money compared to what the vast majority of people have to live on.
Yeah.
And that's nowhere near, the intake of some people.
I get you. Like I was telling you, I read a sort of response article from some guy at the LA Times.
Some guy,
Chumley. From Chumley
He's
at the
at
LA
it again,
Times.
isn't he? Chummers.
Who kind of made some interesting points. He was saying that, like, first of all, it's, worth pointing out that every time there's any discussion about raising taxes on the 1%, a lot of financial papers and websites will put out articles like this, basically trying to say, like, no, actually, if you make over $400,000, like, no, that's middle class.
Yeah, that's, barely scraping by.
Barely scraping by, and, like, and when you look at, like, the actual breakdown of this budget that was shared, like, a lot of things on that list I consider luxuries, and I think a lot of Americans would consider luxuries.
A BMW 5 Series.
A BMW 5 Series, that's a good one.
You live in Brooklyn, you know? I've been to fucking Brooklyn. There's a train.
Yeah.
I don't know. He lives in Brooklyn. He works in Chicago or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just looking at some more of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things here that are interesting in a negative way. Like, childcare is incredibly expensive. There are people, who, it's like, what was I reading? Like, the average full-time childcare cost in the U.S. is like $12,000 per child per year. That could be like half of somebody's income.
401k contribution.
Yeah, so like 401k contribution being considered as a necessity versus, when only like, I wouldn't say it was only like 30% of Americans contribute at all.
They do a date night 26 times a year. They were spending 23 grand.
$23,000 on date nights.
So $1 grand a night. Food for 4.
That is their total food budget. In there as well. So.
Oh, it includes their.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, well, that's perfectly fine then. 3 vacations a year.
Yeah.
Toyota Land Cruiser. Yeah, well, anyway, I wonder if the upper middle class are kind of a bit out of touch.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, indeed.
That was definitely your experience in college, right? Put that down. Put the phone down.
Sure.
I see you playing Candy Crush Saga.
My experience in college, just about
Well, didn't you go to colleges where most people were pretty wealthy or from pretty wealthy backgrounds?
No, I mean, I went to a state school, state university,
Yeah.
IUPUI, which, you know, I mean, it's a state school, it's got state school tuition, so no, definitely not. But I definitely knew people who did. I had a friend who went to Butler University, which is more expensive private school.
Butler!
About like 15 or 20 minutes north. You know, I've definitely met a lot of people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, but in IUPUI, there's quite a bit of variety.
I thought you went to a
but
college where you didn't go to any after-school clubs because
That's IUPUI.
you were working and people were like,
Yeah,
What do you mean you have to
other
work?
kids in my program. Yeah, I remember hearing comments a couple of times about like, are you really even into this major? Because you never come to after-school events and you're not in any of the clubs. I have to work. I don't know what to tell you.
yeah.
You know, it's just not an option. There's nobody, you know, paying it but me and student loans and working, you know. So, like,
See, for me, it was the opposite. It's like, I've never seen you at an after-school club. Good job. Thus raising your social value.
Yeah, right.
An after-school club.
Yeah, I mean,
Get a grip.
I wasn't interested anyway. I don't want to do that shit.
No,
I want to go home and, you know, in my free time, I want to lay on my couch and, like, try to
and splay out.
rest and, is that what I said?
Yes, that's what you
Yeah.
said. Does this bring us to...
Yeah, Supreme Court struck down the particular law
The Supreme Court of America.
that the Biden administration was trying to use to
The Justice League.
to enable some student loan forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, could you have said that sentence more kind of... energy. That's what our people are watching for at home.
I mean,
I'll keep doing this.
I think there should be student loan forgiveness. I also think that there are factors that are real issues, you know, that are more kind of what I would consider in the middle politically. For one, there absolutely needs to be something to stop the rising cost of tuition. If we, you know, cancel student loan debt, you know, a little bit for some people, and then we're not addressing the kind of arms race of tuition prices, which has been going on for over 20 years now. I mean, really even like 30, but it sharply rose around the time that, you know, there was this idea that everybody needed to go to college.
So the arms race of tuition, you mean more like the arms race of a degree?
What I mean specifically is, you know, it's like everybody, you know, you have to go to college. That's what we were, I think it was the same in Britain. Yeah. Like, if you don't go to college, you're going to be
Tony Blair
poor.
called me up one day and was like, "You're going to go to college, George?"
Yeah, and there were, so, you know, more people did go to college. And from what I recall, this was part of the issue, is that universities were then competing for more students, so they would invest in things like sparkly, fancier stadiums, you know, like artwork on campus, all kinds of non-academic stuff to try and like really fancy like food courts and some to try and draw students in by the factor of like, this is cool, you know, this is a cool college, you're gonna enjoy it, look at all this cool stuff. While at the same time, from my limited experience in academia, they were getting rid of tenured professors. By the time that I was in graduate school, it felt like a lot of the instructors, like you'd have like a, you know, professor of a topic who'd been working in it like 30 years, they retire. They don't replace them with somebody else who, you know, makes that salary and has those benefits and stuff. They're not really tenuring anybody anymore, was how it looked to me. They're hiring adjuncts. So, who I actually knew someone who was an adjunct professor in the School of Engineering, IUPUI, who told me that he said he got paid like $1,000 to teach a 1-semester class.
For the whole semester?
For the whole semester.
$1,000.
And that in that class, so that would be, according to the credit hours, it would take 2 students to pay him. And then, the other, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
It's for the football stadium.
Yeah. So they were cutting quality while also telling everybody you have to go to college and putting all kinds of money into these like extracurricular, like fun type things, which only helped to fuel the super fast rising cost of tuition. And it's when you have federal student loans, more students, more money. It's federally guaranteed. And there were some, even kind of around this time, like on the right, who'd say like, well, let's get rid of all federal student loans altogether, and everybody has to get private loans. Well, all you accomplish there is locking poor people out entirely. People who don't have the credit, or people who their credit requires them to get, have a 20% interest rate on their student loan. That's absurd. But you can do something to stymie that rising cost of tuition. And yeah, like these schools need to be punished in some way for wasting all this money and charging out the ass for, do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And one other just quick thing.
Yeah.
I also think that it's nuts to be offering that, like, whatever, $10,000 in student loan forgiveness for people who are making up to $400,000. You're fine. People who are close to this $500,000 couple would be getting student loan forgiveness. And I think that the right is correct to criticize that. They don't need it. They'll be fine. People under a certain income, I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
It should be means tested.
Yeah, it should be based on means. Like, because one of the arguments, like, kind of against that is, well, if you have a college degree, you're, overall, you're going to be making more money anyway. And that's not true.
No.
There are hundreds of thousands of people who have gone to, like, shitty private for-profit colleges that got completely worthless degrees. And have to get private student loans because depending on the school, there's like a cap.
Yeah. It's almost like a big scam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the logic of it was, people with degrees make more money, and that was surely true when those degrees served a purpose of this person is qualified to fill this role. But really, there are a lot of roles in society that are perfectly legitimate that don't need that. I think, maybe this isn't a great example, but I know that, until fairly recently in Britain, to be a paramedic, it was like a 30-week course. And then they changed that to getting a degree. And, also, and talks about, like, you need to do a degree before you can become a cop. And things like that. And...
yeah. I have to imagine part of that is...
I don't see why you ever need a business degree to do anything.
Yeah. I really think that the corporate world helped push some of that.
Yeah.
Because something that I found interesting all those years
with
ago.
With STEM?
With STEM, yeah. I used to work in a STEM research thing.
Testing stems, researching stems.
That's right. The kind of the corporate side of the equation was pushing around like the Obama era, saying, we don't have enough qualified people in STEM to fill the jobs that we have. They're STEM heavy. We need more. That's why we hire people on like H-1B visas to come over, and it's not because they'll work for cheaper. It's because there aren't enough qualified people.
Being able to leave the business as well.
And so then we produced loads of qualified people, and it turns out that wasn't the reason at all.
They didn't want to pay them.
They didn't want to pay them more. That's why.
But do you think the student loan thing, do you think comparing that to PPP is a legitimate comparison?
You mean like we forgive all this PPP loan money?
Yeah.
So why would we not forgive, student loan debt?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that that's kind of a fair comparison. The idea behind PPP was, we don't want to punish these companies and workers for the pandemic, which they didn't choose, so we'll give them all these loans that are pretty much guaranteed to be forgiven. But we don't see workers that way, as people who didn't have a choice in this. And I mean, I followed it a little bit. There have been millions and millions of PPP dollars that were pretty much fraudulently taken by businesses who fired people anyway.
Yeah. Well, you worked there. Fired their entire cleaning staff.
Yeah, overnight.
Overnight.
300 housekeepers gone. And what do you know? People were complaining about how dirty the rooms were. I don't know who was doing it, so yeah, fascinating. Anyway.
Chumley again.
Chumley.
Gary and Chumley.
Yeah, I mean, the people weren't all that interested in talking about the PPP fraud.
It happened quickly.
It happened quickly. There were some Congress people who wanted to look into this.
Yeah.
There was a commission for a little bit looking into some of this money that just disappearing, being forgiven.
Yeah.
And then everybody just kind of forgot. But when it's, kids were being defrauded by their colleges, we don't see that as the same thing.
If it was up to me, I'd make it so that universities were publicly owned, almost without exception. I think there could be exceptions, but I don't think their degree should be worth very much. Or maybe, if you want to become a doctor in religious studies, you've got to do it at one of, a proper university. If you want to become a doctor in, hoo-hoo-ha-ha crazy religion, go and do it, in your forest wonder camp or whatever. But if you ask me, universities should be state-owned and they should be free and they should just have quite a high academic or at least vocational threshold of getting in.
Yeah.
Where, you can do things like, okay, this person doesn't have any formal qualifications, but they have been working in the army for 5 years as an electric engineer. They want to get their degree. They don't have any, they don't have their high school electric qualification or whatever, but yeah, they can come in. But yeah, I mean, the way it was, I went to a university where I went because of it had a practical course, but they had very low standards when I went. I could have gone to a much better university, but it was like if you get a C, you can go. And it was just a waste of time. Like you want people who, not gifted, but like you want people who have an aptitude for what you're going to teach, and get away from everyone going to university. Like the top 20%, let's say, and they get it for free.
Well, and part of that is
and you don't go and study fucking hairdressing. It's something you can study art and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, I think that the arts are important.
It is. But there will be, there should be actual teaching, like.
I get you.
A lot of these places, I went to one, it's just like meaningless busy work. You don't really get taught anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both agree that what we both got degrees in, we could have learned on our own, and in a lot of ways done on our own, and, just didn't quite know that at the time, being children and all,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I was definitely told, like, just get a degree in anything, doesn't matter, Like, nobody, to my knowledge, had been to college before me, so, I was kind of just going on what, like, guidance counselor said. That's kind of, like, the only frame of reference I had.
Yeah. So if you sit at home and you didn't get a degree, don't worry, you didn't miss out.
Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. All the, like, fun partying that you see in movies, like, I'm pretty sure that's, like, rich people schools, because in my school, it was a lot of very tired people, like, just trying to get their degree,
Yeah. I mean, mine was, there were parties and stuff, but it was also, like, a lot of, like, the girl down the hallway, like, in her pajamas at 8 p.m. eating a bowl of, like, unseasoned rice and then going to bed because she's got no money, sort of thing. Like, nothing very cool ever happened.
Yeah, and,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't go to college to anyone or anything. Just be careful.
I'm not saying that either, but, there's no rush.
Don't go to college for baking bread.
Yeah, and, if you're, like, 18 and thinking about going to college or thinking about going back to college or whatever, you got all the time in the world. Just, don't feel afraid to, like...
Bum around.
Bum around a bit, yeah, and, work a bit and,
Find yourself.
Figure out what you really want to do, and there's no rush as much as they want you to think there is. Some people.
Go someplace like India and see all the poverty.
Yeah.
And realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Just
it's a wilderness of pain.
Make sure that you're making a choice for yourself, not just doing what people think you should do. So you could just find yourself
stuck on YouTube
doing this shit
that
you didn't have to go to school for.
Is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like what we do.
Yeah, you love it.
I do actually. It's fulfilling. I'm not working for some corporate shit stain. Oh God, yeah. I didn't even mention the whole sparks flying element of the snake. It was wrapped up around the cable to this light, and also dangerously close to the router in the corner there. And
the light cord was also stuck to the sticky trap.
Also stuck to the trap, and in the process of taking care of it, George accidentally severed the cable, and sparks were flying, and so my computer cable is attached to this right now, and we'll be going back when we're done.
Yep. What else is on the little...
Yeah, so the budget stuff, student loan forgiveness.
Meghan. We did that.
Yeah. I was going to mention possibly, just along the lines of the college thing. When I graduated with my undergrad, and was looking for a job, one of the jobs I actually was offered was on contract working for one of the biggest test prep and standardized testing companies in America. On contract, $10 an hour, requires a bachelor's degree. This is what we're paying people who are deciding whether or not your children can go to college. I just thought everybody should know that, because I found that fascinating.
$10 isn't enough for you?
$10 an hour?
Greedy Christina. You should go and work at Casa Bonita.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? $30 an hour.
That's plenty. That's what I think about that.
Matt Parker and Trey Stone are opening up Casa Bonita. They've invested,
Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
I think I'm right in saying they invested about $4.5 trillion into it. Now they invest a lot of money into the 50,000 square foot Colorado restaurant Casa Bonita, and they've decided to cap servers to pay servers $30 an hour.
Yeah, with no tips.
I think it's actually on a sliding scale, so I don't think everyone is getting that.
Yeah.
They decided to do that the day before they opened. They'd previously said there were going to be tips, so that's why a few people were pissed off, I guess. Do you think $30 an hour is good enough? You used to be a server.
Yeah. I used to be a server.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the best days of your life.
If I were paid $30 an hour instead of tipping, I would have loved that. First of all, that's slightly higher than it's a bit higher than what my average was.
Yeah, most servers get paid.
And if you don't know, in America, the federal tipped minimum wage is $2.13 an hour and has been since the early 90s.
What's the average of actual take home? Isn't it like $10?
The average nationwide, the average server makes less than $20,000 a year.
Jeez. Same as chicken farmers.
Yeah.
18,000.
Yeah, you know those poor lawyers.
So you think $30,000? Yeah. $30 an hour.
Just my personal experience, I think I would have loved to have rather made a set hourly rate that was decent.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about it was a slow night, and after tipping out and getting a ride to and from work, I've lost $30 for the day, that kind of thing. Not having to have the stress of that, I think would have helped me, would have been health-wise helpful, would be for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And also, I personally think that if it were a guaranteed thing, it'd be easier to just give good service all the time.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Do you not think that people won't be served as well because...
Well, here's what it really comes down to, is that most restaurants, if they get rid of tipping, are not going to be paying $30 an hour. They're not going to pay $20 an hour.
Yeah.
They're going to pay like $12 an hour, $15 an hour, like they do out in, I think it's like 15. It's like the average out in, maybe it's like San Francisco, where they've like a lot of places have gotten rid of tipping.
And that's not enough.
And that's not enough.
Yeah, especially for San Francisco.
Yeah, so I can kind of see the argument on both sides that, you know, most companies are not going to pay decent. So I can see why there are also people who are like, no, we want to keep the tipping system, because if you get into like an expensive restaurant, you can make a middle class living.
Well, maybe that's the answer.
But that's a very tiny percentage as well.
Expensive restaurants keep the tipping because you're expecting, you know, fine dining. Yeah. Whereas I'm sure Casa Bonita is going to be more of a family style thing, I would guess. I mean, unless you have to like go there in like a tuxedo, which would be funny. Yeah. Yeah. I mean.
But I guess what people were frustrated about in that story is that it was like the day before they were going to sign their contracts. They told them, actually, we're doing away with tipping, and you know. But personally, I think $30 an hour is, you know,
pretty good.
Yeah, middle class earnings. You're going to destroy your body very
I bet
quickly,
they're not making, and I bet most of the kitchen staff aren't being paid that.
Oh, hell no. No. I mean, you've got restaurants where you're spending like $100 on a meal per person. Guaranteed the kitchen staff is making like $9 an hour. That's been my experience.
They hate you.
Yeah. There's no chef, by the way. You know, that's just what they
Who
say.
Who are you talking to? You.
You guys.
Yeah.
Restaurants are a scam, guys. Just don't do it.
Everything is a scam.
That's my experience.
Yeah.
Having worked in a number of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Everything is. Can you think of one thing that isn't a scam? Astronomy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Dogs
are worth having. Not a scam.
Puppy farms aren't a scam? How dare you?
Well, that's different. Yeah.
This isn't a dog. This is 3 squirrels.
3 squirrels in a suit.
In a suit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew there was something wrong with it because it was. What dog wears a suit? I said. Yeah. Was that it? Are we done?
Yeah. I mean, that was just about it for our list today. Yeah. You got anything you'd like to add or talk about? We'll
talk more about video games next time, maybe.
Yeah. What are you playing right now?
Still RimWorld.
Still RimWorld. Didn't you play some Kenshi this week too?
I did, but I'll talk about that next week.
Yep. Maybe I'll talk about Project Zomboid again, which I'm still enjoying.
Great. So, tune in for that. All right. Thanks very much for watching. Ta-ta. Bye.